Hey everybody, it's Benny One, and I'm back at you with another movie review, everybody. And today we are going to review the newest DC Universe animated movie that is out. I'm really late to watching this, but is Injustice. I have had it since it came out, and I'm not really quite sure why it took me so long to watch it. I watched it yesterday because I'm a huge fan of the video game series and the comic book series because they did the comic book series and then they made the video games out of that. And the comic book and the video game follow, like, the video game follows the comic book storyline pretty damn well, actually. Almost not quite to the T, but pretty faithfully, both games that they put out. And the game is fun, both of them, Injustice, Gods Among Us, and then the sequel. The comic book storyline, though, is fantastic. I'm pretty sure it ran for 2 solid years because they did a volume one and then they did did a second part too, and it's fantastic. I've read all of it. So naturally, when they announced that they were doing a animated feature movie of it that's going to be rated R, I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. Awesome. I am so ready for this because this takes place in an alternate DC universe. So they have the freedom to write characters a little different. Their costumes look a little different. That's what I love about alternate universes. And DC is always diving into that multiverse stuff with their characters, other Earths, and all sorts of shit. Marvel's starting to do it now too, which I think is badass and awesome that they're finally starting to really dive into that type of stuff because I love alternate versions of the comic book characters and the freedom that they can use to do different things, like the Red Sun, where Superman lands in Russia instead of America. That is awesome. Just a concept and a different spin on one of our favorite classic comic book characters that got raised in Russia instead of America. So we have Injustice, everybody. Like I said, it's rated R. And honestly, there's a few, like, cuss words that I would say that would make it rated R. And there's not as much blood and gore in it that I thought there was going to be, because there is blood in the comic book series. So it has great action sequences in it. Some of the fights that are in the comic book do make it into this movie. I will say that. And they're good action sequences. That's one thing DC is very good at doing these animated movies. They're very good at doing them. That's one thing. You can say what you want to say about the live action versions of what they've been doing over the years, even though lately they've been doing great, in my opinion. They finally got shit on track and running smooth. Their animated stuff, though, is always solid to me, to great. It's always solid to great. Every once in a while, there's a stinker in there, but it's been great for years because they've had this DC animated division since like 2006. They've been cranking these. They put out like 3 or 4 movies a year. They've been doing that since like 2006. So these people know what they're doing. And they've adapted a lot of cool comic book storylines and turned them into these hour and 20-minute movies. So the cast, I will say that the voice cast, I think, did a pretty good job in this movie. We have the standouts for me. I wrote down a few names. Were Justin Hartley, who plays Superman in this. He played the Green Arrow in Smallville. He also was Aquaman in the Aquaman pilot that never aired back in the mid-2000s. He's also on This Is Us, huge part for him. So yeah, I thought he did a good job as Superman. Anson Mount plays Batman, and you know what? I was impressed with his Batman. I gotta tell you, very impressed. He's been in Hell on Wheels. He was the main character in that. And then he also played Christopher Pike, Captain Pike, in Star Trek Discovery, the season 2 of that. So he did great as Batman. I was very surprised. And then Brandon Michael Hall plays Cyborg. Awesome job as Cyborg. He did great. The one, though, that I was not really super impressed with was Kevin Polk. He played the Joker, and I just don't think what he did with his voice with the Joker fit what this movie was doing, because this movie is dark. It's very dark. The story's very dark, because the story of this is that the Joker decides to go after Superman because he always fails going after Batman. So he decides, I'm going to attack Superman and I'm going to hit him where it hurts. So he basically takes the Scarecrow fear toxin and puts kryptonite in it and uses it on Superman and makes him think he is fighting Doomsday. But ultimately, he ends up killing Lois Lane, his wife. And there is a certain situation that you are introduced to in the very beginning of this story and this movie that really makes that hit right here because of something that's going on. So, but yes, so the Joker literally makes him think he's fighting Doomsday, and it's actually Lois. And yeah, you probably, if you've read the comic book, you know, she dies. He literally kills her. Superman kills his wife because he cannot see that it's really Lois Lane. And at the same time, Metropolis is wiped clean from the planet, like, because of what happens too, because Lois, I won't totally dive into details, but it's very horrible and very traumatic for Superman, and he snaps, people. He freaking snaps and basically turns into a dictator where, like, he gets super dark and everything. But yeah, and the Joker, the guy that voiced him, I just felt like he wasn't dark enough. It was too light what he did with his voice. It was more the Adam West Joker, you know, that era Joker, instead of the more darker, like Mark Hamill, you know, Troy Baker, like, type Joker voices, which I think would have fit better with this iteration of the Joker. So, but yeah, the movie, the story and everything in it's really dark and it hits hard because it literally takes Superman and turns him into this evil ass dictator that basically says, I don't care about governments. I don't care about your laws, your rules. You're all going to stand down. We're going to have peace, or I'm going to freaking force you to, or I will kill you. Basically, is what he decides to do because of what the Joker did to him and his friends and Lois and everything. Like, it is crazy, the story. And the movie does a pretty good job in the first probably like 30 minutes of recapturing like what the comic book did, like almost page for page in the first 30 minutes. But there's a lot of story in the comic books that they couldn't fit in an hour and 15-minute movie. So there's a lot of plot holes, a lot of stuff left out. There's a lot of stuff with certain characters that end up dying that it's like they died and nobody even said anything about it, like, at all. And they're like major characters. Like, that's plot hole galore. And it's because this should have been probably a 2-part thing where it should have ended about in the middle of this movie and they could have added more story elements from the comic book, and then they could have did a part 2 and they could have flushed it out even more, because it felt super rushed after about 30 minutes with me knowing the comic book backstory and the lore with all that and playing the video game. I was like, holy crap, they're just rushing through this like hardcore. Like, we get action scenes and everything, but like, it's just so rushed. And it would have benefited from being 2 movies, at least 2 animated movies, and it even could have been 3 possibly. Or, I mean, they could have turned this thing into an animated series that could have ran for 2 or 3 seasons easily, and they would have been able to flush this all out and it would have been done properly. So, but I mean, overall, if you read the comic books or you've played the video game, there is something in here I guess you could enjoy. Like I said, the fight scenes between certain heroes that are in the comic books, they get that stuff in here. They nailed the art and the animation and the look of all the heroes that they look like from the comic books and in the video game. So, and I love the alternate universe, the multiverse stuff, where they just do different crazy things with characters and change up their stories. I love all that stuff, but they didn't do a very good job telling this awesome alternate universe story. They didn't, unfortunately. So I'm gonna give Injustice a 6 out of 10. Like I said, they really didn't flesh out the story, and it was super rushed. A lot of plot holes. The voice cast was good, I think. Good action and stuff like that. Good animation, but the story suffers really bad. So a 6 out of 10 for Injustice, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed that review. Thanks for watching, and I'll be catching you on the tube laters because I have spoken.